I'm opening. We have an eye, sort of a nostril, 2 teeth. One of the teeth has a small cavity. Close call, folks, but I think we got here just in time.
Presented by Maria Menounos and Kevin Undergaro. This is Anatomy of a Movie. In-depth discussions and breakdowns of various movie titles. And now that you've seen the movie, let the dissection begin.
Hi guys, we're here for another episode of Anatomy of a Movie. I'm Sara Stretton, and today we have a very special guest, the wonderful Ryan McGarry, or Dr. Ryan McGarry. Is that how I should say it?
Hey, I'm off duty, so
just Ryan.
Definitely not. It's off duty time.
Okay. And
so yeah, Ryan works.
We have to tell everyone why you're here. We're here to talk about the wonderful documentary. It's called Code Black. It's coming to theaters soon, and I just got to see it last week. I want to say that I really like it because I do, but it also was a little bit scarring. I'm not good with real life gore. I can watch 300 1,000 times and be totally fine, and it goes straight over my head. Watching this, knowing it's real, you push the boundaries of what you were willing to show to the camera. I was a little taken back at points. Was that a goal? Were you like, I'm putting everything out there? I want to see.
I mean, it was a goal. It wasn't a gratuitous goal.
Mm-hmm.
We had meaning behind it. So, I mean, yes, it's extraordinarily graphic at times, but I think what we wanted you to feel, which is exactly how I felt just a few years ago when, I was there and someone was like, hey, see this gunshot wound in this guy's chest? What's your plan, buddy? What's your plan? You got to fix this. And you're going, I think I know what to do, but I don't know. And that's terrifying. So we want you in the movie to feel that with us being myself and my physician friends. And, we're young docs at this point.
Mm-hmm.
We're not experienced. We're not battle ready. We don't know all of the ins and outs of how to fix this thing. So yeah, we want you to feel that intensity.
When you're entering into the situation, so at the beginning of Code Black, you're going through your residency. We follow you through 4 years. And we kind of see it go step by step. There's a lot of transitions between hospitals, between the learning curve. But getting in that first day, that first week's, what have you learned up to then? Have you worked with patients in critical condition before? Or is this on your feet the moment you're entering LA County, that's your first ER experience?
Well, let's just say that there's normal medicine and then there's county medicine, okay? And you can't be ready for county medicine. I mean, county medicine is a crossroads between some of the sickest people in the city because they don't have any coverage, so they wait till they're at death's doorstep to even show up. So you're pulling people in from the waiting room who are literally dying right there, and then you got the 5 and the 10 freeway and the 60 all converging, and you got car wrecks, and then you got a lot of gang territory in that area who thankfully less now than then they're shooting and stabbing each other. So all that's converging on one place, and who can be ready for that, right? So up until then, yeah, you're a little bit prepared. You studied some things, but you can't be ready to be thrown into that craziness.
I'm just fascinated because obviously, yes, you can't be prepared for that. It's crazy. But then you decided on top of that you were going to start a film and start the endeavor of creating a visual representation of this. What made you think you were prepared to do that? It turned out very well. You did a very good job. But what gave you the idea that sparked turning your experience into a film?
Well, for one, I read Maria's book right here.
Because every girl's guide to diet and fitness is going to tell you about.
I read this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Maria.
You read this 4 years ago before it was published?
I read this book. I was ready. Not only was I ready for trauma surgery, critical care medicine, but I was also ready to make a film. All from this book.
There you go.
Maria, you rock.
And you obviously know how to time travel because this is brand new, and that happened, a couple of years ago now?
Listen, that's neither here nor there, okay?
But thank you. It is a very good book, guys. Check it out.
Yeah, for real. So basically, what was your question?
Sorry. I want to know what made you decide to start filming this. Where did that inspiration come from?
Okay, honestly, when I arrived at the LA County Hospital, I was a medical student. So that's pretty low on the totem pole. I think in that moment, you think you've seen some things, you've read about some stuff, and I still had the perspective to know that what was going on there was completely extraordinary. And on top of things, there was about to be a big change. So this was a 80-year hospital that had kind of fit their emergency department in just the ground floor. It wasn't even its own dedicated area. I mean, it had become that over the years. But, I mean, emergency medicine is only 30 years old. So this was like sort of just a whole new place. And I found out that they're about to move hospitals. So they're going to go from the old hospital to the new one. And at that point, I was like, wow, this would be an incredible place to like shoot a film and like document this. And and on top of that, the visual nature of the space was, as a filmmaker, was absolutely incredible. And I thought, all right, I will archive, like we'll shoot some archival footage and we'll see where this goes. And that kind of took off from there.
Oh, so this was originally just to document the move. Because to me, one of the messages of this film, it does show the change, but it also is this, it's like peeling back the layers of this onion of all the problems in the medical industry. Right. And that's a much, in a way, deeper level that this film connects to.
Exactly.
It does illustrate how hard it is, and you kind of divide it into these sections throughout the film. And it's just, I feel like I'm just getting the beginning of all of the complicated matters that go in between, you know, papers and the patients themselves and healthcare and the government and shortages on doctors and nurses. There's so many things. That was all a second kind of.
Yeah, well, so I mean, listen, documentary film is brutally hard for the reason that you don't know your story until you're doing it. And that's terrifying, right? Because like ideally you're telling a story, you want to script it out. You want to have a set outline, and you know, like, all right, there's some safety in that because you know here's what's going to happen. Documentary is quite a leap. I mean, I think I set out absolutely to capture this historic move from this one historic location to another, all in the context of this like visual insanity of these crazy sick people and the intensity of this world and everything else.
Tiny room.
Exactly. That, of course, changed when I became a training physician there myself. So that's a key detail, is that I was a medical student at the time, and there's no guarantee where you match as a resident physician, and I happened to match at USC. I think probably the film helped with that, but there was certainly no guarantee. And then once I ended up there, I found myself not only as a filmmaker sort of looking for the next part of the story, but also as a character, kind of like suddenly I was living this world, whereas before I was mostly just a observer.
That's crazy. Like for me, I watched film and you're in it, and I see you so much as, you know, you're a doctor. This is what you do. Yeah. And then you are pushing it and taking on that second title of filmmaker. And you balance both well. Did that help get information out of patients? Were they more welcoming to you? Did they understand what you were doing as you were filming them in these critical situations?
Yes, and in fact, we had to be careful because you would imagine that, I mean, there's a place of healing. People are going to trust their physician to be a doctor. You don't necessarily gamble on also like being involved in a film at the same time. So I think it was a very sensitive subject for like my team and I, because we didn't want to ever take advantage of that scenario. We would always be explaining to patients, like, listen, you know, we're trying to stand up for what we think is a very backward system in America, and we think that you deserve better care. We're trying to make a film about that. You want to work with us? And by and large, I mean, patients were willing to work with us. I mean, if anything, I think I kicked and screamed more about being in my own film at times, just because, like, you know, I don't.
When did you not want to be in it?
Well, for the whole first 2 years of production, I mean, like, it was not going to be about the new sort of like myself and my colleagues. Like we were going to just sort of keep the story contained to the old hospital, and then I think narratively we were going, no, there's just too much here. There's too much of a story happening right now, because here we are, we're growing up.
And you have to grow up with it.
Yeah, we're growing up as doctors, and the story was evolving, and so that's kind of how that went down.
Okay, so there's a lot of interviews throughout your film where you do talk to your colleagues separately. Was that then added afterwards, like after you've gotten a majority of your footage? When did you start interviewing them?
Yeah, in part. So I mean, we designated time to follow the characters, and as we, you know, witnessed what life was doing to them in the emergency department, we would then bring them back for an interview and say, all right, let's talk about this. What happened? And that's one way that in some ways you don't really piss off your friends in documentary, because the characters are ultimately chosen by the cosmos. I mean, we had probably about 8 or 9 of my friends that I thought were good to be followed by cameras. They were comfortable with it. And ultimately only half of those had the cases that we felt were, you know, contributing to the story. And so in the end, it's like I didn't even get to cast my own film in a way. It sort of just happened naturally.
Okay, and how many hours of footage do you think you shot? I mean, the film's 88 minutes. How how many hours were you filming throughout these 4 years?
So, it's not as many. I think people want to hear like 20,000 hours. Instead, I think we shot maybe like a few hundred.
Okay.
Which when you learn more about the documentary community, I mean, that's something that's actually valued. It probably means you were more focused. I mean, that's not the same for every film, and there's certainly times where you just have to roll on everything and you take what you can get. But for every hour you add, that's more of a headache for your editor.
When did you find yourself choosing to say, okay, let's film this? Was there specific cases you'd hear them about to come in? You're like, we need to film this one. Was it based on the people? Was it based on people who were on staff that day?
Yeah, it'd be a mix of things, and I think that for the most part, we were interested in telling a story about intensity. What does intensity mean? And for us, I think intensity meant clarity. I mean, I think that when we were pushed, it meant that we could only really see what we really had to do and nothing else. And so, intensity for us could be very loud and big and crazy, as some of the scenes that you mentioned are, or it could be really difficultly intimate, like telling someone that their mom just died. How are you going to do that? I mean, that's a pretty intense moment. And I think what we look for and the benefit of that scenario is like, okay, how is this helping me? And usually the answer was, well, in these moments, it's really easy to see what matters about healthcare.
And then you do go through that in healthcare. Every time I feel like you Google like the healthcare system, everything always starts with, we are in the worst medical crisis we have ever seen. And then it sometimes talks about something else. And I'm like, everyone says we're in this huge medical crisis. And I feel like your movie does a really good job of trying to get people on the page where they're learning what the questions we need to be asking. And you spread the focus. It's not narrowed to like, this is the center problem. It's not placing any, in my opinion, I didn't get that there was a specific blame. It was that there's all these contributing factors.
Yeah.
How do you propose people change that? Do you have to focus on one thing at a time? Is there a central movement that people can do to cause change? I know that's a really big question, and obviously you just spent 88 minutes on a film diving into problems that it has. But do you have ideas for solutions or where to start?
For first of all, be very afraid of syphilis. Okay, I mean that's a very serious medical problem.
Okay.
Okay, that's my first advice.
I will try to stay away from syphilis.
Okay,
Thank
listen.
you. I can do my part.
Listen, STDs are for real. Okay, I know. I'm an ER doctor. Look out. No.
Amongst the gunshot wounds and everything else.
Yeah, for real. Look
really
out for syphilis.
syphilis.
Okay, it's not over yet. There isn't. I mean, there are some value questions that I think would apply to all Americans, and I think that's probably the problem with the healthcare debate is that we're at a policy level when maybe we skip the value discussion, and that's what can you do about that? It would be naive to say that can we just not care about each other's health? Well, in theory you could not, but then we ultimately all pay for it, right? So if you have a diabetic, and they could be getting insulin for pennies a day, right? Then we could save our society the $1 million ICU stay, or their unnecessary surgery that they're going to get in 20 or 30 years. That's a pretty progressive idea to say to people,
so
we
it's
should
on, like defensive medicine.
Preventative care, right? I mean, so these are values. It's like, well, but before we even get to the idea of how do we do preventative care, it's like, well, look, do you care about your neighbor? Do you care about them? And the economic answer to that would be, well, you should, because if you don't, we all pay for their bad health, you know? I don't know if there's necessarily solutions to that other than, what kind of country are we? What kind of society are we? Is that something that we care about? Is it not? I don't know.
So we have to change the mentality, which is obviously a lot harder, but it's hard because it is a huge scope, but it's basic. What you break it down to is it being basic, caring about your neighbor, making these small steps to avoid huge surgeries, like you said. And then you break it down wherein you're often in code black. You've got all these people who are waiting hours, and then half of them sometimes go home because they can't wait that long, being that it's a headache, being that it's a cold, and they're kind of put on the bottom of the totem pole. And then their cases get worse. And then they wait until they are at level 1, level 2, and then they're coming in and we're spending more money.
Right.
So it's getting rid of those, or helping with the smaller medical cases in also, I guess.
Yeah, and I think, what you're bringing up is the idea that, look, being sick sucks. Needing a doctor at 2 a.m. sucks, because ideally I think that we would all agree that the ER is not the best place for a lot of healthcare to happen, to be honest. I mean, most of what we see in the ER should not be in the ER, although the specialty has changed to accommodate that, and we do with a smile, because at the end of the day, people need to be taken care of, and it's better than nothing. That said, we would all agree, I mean, if you're coming in for your high blood pressure, as an ER doc, I'm not going to see you again. You need someone who's going to have a relationship with. And so these are not things that at our age we really worry about, because we don't have these kind of issues, hopefully ever, but definitely not yet. But when you are in that position, I think you're sort of in some tough decisions sometimes. It's like, well, you're gonna take a day off work to go to the doctor.
There's so much fear around it.
Yeah.
Like personally, like I do have insurance, and I even get scared about when I need to go to the doctor. If I envision myself going to the doctor, it's like, oh, I'm probably gonna go if I have a broken bone.
Right.
Because I don't want to go if I have a cold. I don't want to go if I'm going to. I don't know what I'm gonna end up paying for. I have no idea what services are covered and what's not, and how many hours I'm willing to spend there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I might as well just drink a bunch of juice and try to take my Advil, and hopefully it will get better. And then I do wait until it's at that point where it's been 2-3 weeks, and I'm like, oh, now I've had a cold for 3 weeks. And they're like, why didn't you come in and tell us? But there's a fear. There's a fear surrounding going to the doctor, what is covered, what isn't, how much time. And it gets to critical conditions, and I think that's for everyone.
Yeah.
A lot of people you talk about are the uninsured or are people who can't afford it. I'm in the luxury where I have had insurance, and I still fear it.
And it's inconvenient. There's a lot of things that are just not easy about it.
It's not. Yeah. There is a stigma around it that no matter what, you're going to be in a bad position. Like, I don't know anyone who goes to the doctor and is like, oh, it's going to be a half-an-hour appointment.
Right.
And that's the hospital. That's your family physician. That's anyone you're expecting to spend 2 hours. And a lot of that, you break down, goes to people need now paperwork. You can't just go in and say, like, here, have some vitamin C. They are going to have to make a process out of you.
True.
And it's never done simply, even if it is a simple case.
So are we going to take callers now?
Do you want to take callers?
We're going to take some callers. Is that right?
Do you have a friend who's calling?
No, I heard we're going to take callers. We're going to do some curbside medical diagnoses. Yeah?
Well, I have a curbside medical diagnosis. Are you talking about my burn?
We looked at this earlier. Yeah.
I have a horrible burn from fajitas, guys. And curbside medical attention, I think, is the way of the future, where you just now have to go bombard all the people you know who are doctors and get them to fix you.
That looks like lupus to me, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
This little speck right here. Is that your new future, turning into curbside medicine?
First of all, lupus, I'm not making fun of lupus. Is like a real disease, by the way.
I don't have lupus.
No, that's a minor burn.
Can this be the sequel to Code Black?
Burn. Yeah.
Curbside medicine at the AfterBuzz at Anatomy of a Movie in the studio.
Yeah, and we're gonna try to get that a theater run. So
Perfect.
It's gonna be awesome. Yeah.
Wait, let's actually talk about how you did get this into theaters. Let's go back to the movie. Let's go back to Code Black. So premiered last year in festivals, and then this year we are bringing it to the big theaters. How did you get it into the festival run in the first place? How did you go about that?
Well, we first of all tested the hell out of the film. And because I was nervous, it was terrible. Seriously. I mean,
what did you think was terrible about it?
Well, listen. I mean, the benefit and crutch of the film is that we are so internal to that world. So in some ways, look, all documentary is subjective. I don't think there's such thing as objective. But in this case, we were pretty damn subjective because we worked there. So
and it's your life.
Yes, and it's my life. And and at that point, I was a resident, training 60, 70, 80 more hours a week. Plus the demands of cutting a feature film. That's not a combo I recommend. So these are problematic forces. Nobody sets out to make a bad film, but let's face it, it happens. And I think I was worried that we had a piece of garbage, to be honest, and worse, one that could damage an already. This is like an institution that's like an endangered species, like a county hospital is publicly funded. It does not need any more bad press. And so, I was pretty nervous that I would be the asshole to be graduating from my residency with a horrifically reviewed film about the LA County Hospital and was just going to get booed.
And luckily it got rave reviews. And I think one of the messages is that we need more hospitals like County Hospital who are willing to take all of these people. We need more facilities like that. I mean, there's one point in your film where you show a map of all of the places like County Hospital, and they're scattered like crazy. I was like, if I lived in the middle of the state and had no insurance. How would I get there?
Right.
It's so hard. So I don't think they got that message. For all those of you who haven't watched it, go watch it. Trust me, you'll learn to respect this place. But how did you go about just getting your film into those places that it could be screened, making those contacts, submitting it to festivals? Like, did you know about that world before? You'd been training in medicine. Where did you find all of this out?
No. So happily, I had an amazing team. So I brought on some veteran producers, and they were incredible. So I mean, early on in the process, before we were done filming, even I showed an assembly reel to them. I said, "Listen, I think there's something here." They agreed. Slowly but surely, we built a great team, and of those team members, we had filmmakers who had made films before and had experience in the festivals, and so I was very fortunate to not have to do this by myself. Had a ton of support, and ultimately, I think that we forged a path that ended up being the right one for the film. I mean, in the moment, you're always wondering, should we have gone for this festival or should we have started here? It's easy to second guess yourself, but in the end, I can't complain. I mean, we did a great run at the LA Film Festival, where we premiered exactly 1 year ago.
And it's back.
Yeah, and then we pretty much ran undefeated at domestic festivals. Did a great run at Vancouver. And
Were you expecting those awards? Were you expecting to win? Like, how did it feel when you found out it was getting all of these reviews and it was doing so well?
No, I was not expecting it at all. I mean, I think it was pretty awesome. I mean, I think again if you think about it, just for any film to make it to the screen, period, takes about 100 miracles. For it to not suck is probably another 100 more miracles. And in this case, that applied to us. I mean, either by accident or skill or otherwise. I think we found ourselves here with a great film, and I do think the cosmos has a lot to do with it. I mean, I think that there were times where, particularly in documentary, we just got lucky, and I think that there's many ways to screw it up after that, and we got lucky some more. So I mean, I think that I just feel really blessed and lucky about it, and I'm very motivated to keep working.
You had all of these screen testings before you went to festivals. Did you make any big changes based on people's reviews or things that they were confused about? No?
Not really, yeah. We had a lot of requests for it to be in 3D. And we said, listen, okay, that is
surprising.
That is fucking tacky. Sorry. That is tacky.
It's okay.
That was tacky. But that is really tacky. Guy, we don't want to have blood and vomit at people in 3D. Don't you think that'd be tacky? Could you handle that?
I'm just really surprised because that's a notion that never really hit me. Like, you have a very big, loud, exciting opening with like helicopters and action pack, but
listen, all the studios wanted it in 3D, and we resisted. We said no, we will not make this film in 3D.
I think that was a good choice.
Yeah, no. So yeah, once we were out of that, we said no 3D films here, and then they were like, "We'll make it in IMAX." And I said again, I was like, no, we're not going to make this film in IMAX. This is actually a true story. At I think it was somewhere in the Northwest. I think it was Portland.
I was going to be like, got Portland, you got Seattle.
Portland, I believe it actually screened in IMAX. Like it wasn't native to that format, but it was shown in a real IMAX theater. And to those people, I say, wow, because it is a very we joke that there's like a splash zone in this film, like the first few rows, it's a pretty intense place to be, and so I always warn people at the festivals. I'm like, listen, you might want to just maybe back up or something, because it's intense.
Brace yourself a little bit. It's talking about real life, the most critical situations you can find yourself in.
That's right. That's right. And all joking aside, I mean, like these are obviously very like intense and like gruesome scenes again that we are trying to show you. Look at ultimately, if you sign up for this industry, you want to be a doctor, you want to come into the emergency department, this is gonna be the first thing that freaks you out, and then the next thing that freaks you out, as you've seen the film, is not the trauma, it is not the shock and awe, it's actually the waiting room, and it's the idea of healthcare access and all the barriers that separate us as doctors and patients, and then you go, that's really the most scary thing.
Coming out of this, do you hope to encourage the next generation of doctors to keep going? Like, do you think that people will see this and be like, oh, we do need more doctors, we need more nurses, we need more people out there and searching for that career? Is that what you want?
Yeah, I mean, I think the good news and I hope the optimistic message of Code Black is that, the idea of the American physicians changing. I mean, most of my colleagues have left other industries to do this. Like they were either bankers or engineers or something, you know. So they've all left other industries because they're like, you know, I think I want something. I want to fight for something more, which is very different than the notion of being like, I just want to get rich. Not that happens, by the way. I mean, really, that's a very rare outcome these days in medicine, especially since I am $275,000 in loans.
Woo!
That's right, Maria.
Maria, plug. No.
Yeah.
What?
So yeah. So seriously, so that's a problem, and
But that's also based on. I feel like, is it the same for your ER, where a lot of doctors are paid based on service versus salary?
Well, so I mean, for the most part, you would have to. I think the only way now to make medicine lucrative would be to own your own practice and to have a business. For the most part, if you're working for a hospital, as most ER docs do, or if you're working for a practice as an employee, you know, most likely you will be comfortable. I mean, I'm not saying that you're going to be poor, but I mean, I get 2 paychecks a month, and one entirely goes to my loans, and the other I have to use for rent and other things. So I'm not like scoring here. And again, my point is that most of us are doing this with
something bigger.
With that knowledge, we know this, and we're trying to like do good things for other people and to be servants, frankly. And I think that's a very different mentality than maybe physicians of a few generations past. Not that they were bad doctors, but I think it's a growing trend where people are saying, you know what, I'm going to leave this other area of my life to go do this, and I totally get the consequence.
Well, it's hard. I think that there was for so many times, it's like, oh, if you want to make money, be a doctor or a lawyer. And now times are changing, and with whatever is going on with our healthcare system, people are afraid that there's not going to be enough money to support the doctors, to support the nurses. There's obviously not enough nurses. So it is trying to reach out to people and say that this is needed.
Yeah.
This is as important as like when we used to have like, I'm going to get shot down for everything I'm about to say, but like they said that we needed like army people to stand up for people to fight for us, but we really need people to fight for us in the hospitals and to be doctors and to be nurses and to, because that's where we're really saving lives. But it's so hard. It's draining. It takes time, and it is every minute. You can't not pay attention, and that's the thing about this film. It's like I was so sucked into this film just because I was like, anytime you blink, something can change, because it's crisis.
Have you seen Grey's Anatomy?
Yes.
You ever heard of that show?
Yeah, I've heard of that show.
What do you think of it?
I think that you walk out of Grey's Anatomy. I like Grey's Anatomy. I think you walk out of Grey's Anatomy going, oh, I like the relationships between the doctors. You're not really thinking about the relationship.
Let me tell you something.
With the
That is
patient.
exactly how the real world is.
Yeah.
Exactly. Grey's Anatomy, they got it spot on. Spot on. I'm joking. Totally not serious. No.
You think it's just drama between the doctors?
Yeah,
and
well, I
the
mean,
nurses?
listen, I obviously it's entertainment, and I feel like, you know, we should have fun with those shows. But, you know, it's like the legit reality is that it's kind of a lonely profession. Seriously. I mean, like, there would be plenty of times where I've seen horrific cases, and it's so sad. And you know, you would love some of the scenes that they have in that show and others where it's like, okay, I wish there was this like doctor bar where we all go after and we like talk about what happened, and it's like all good, and it's like, you know, a lot of times you have to go home and think about those things on your own. And, you know, there isn't, you know, I don't know, when you're this age, when you're young, when you're a new doc, what do you do about that kind of experience? And I don't know if it's necessarily easy at times, but it's definitely a factor that would be hard to translate to any TV show, to be honest. Is like, you know, you visually consume. I mean, imagine seeing these images in Code Black every single day, and it's like after a while, I mean, there is an effect to that.
Do you think that it starts to haunt you more, or do you get kind of numb to it at a certain point?
I think it depends on who you are, and I think that's partly what Code Black questions is what do you do about your idealism and your hopefulness, and hopefully what's a positive view on the world when every day you're seeing this really interesting like crossroads of a lot of America's problems, right? I mean, the ER has become a place where you go if you're not just sick. What if you're just homeless? Well, we just see people who just come because they're homeless. That's it. There's nothing else wrong with them. They just have no place to go that night.
What do you do when...
Exactly. That's the thing. What do you do? I mean, so, I mean, yeah, we have social workers. Yeah, we have, a place for them to stay often for the night, but we also can't become a shelter per se, right? We can't give them every meal. I mean, there's just no way that would be possible. Same goes for addiction, for psychiatric issues, for people who are just down on their luck, and in effect, when they hit rock bottom, well, in America, you often end up in the ER for whatever reason. So I think that those are incredibly weighty issues to deal with when you're in your late 20s and early 30s. And you don't have necessarily have the tools to comprehend all that and process it. And then how do you go forward in your life? What do you do that night? You drink a little scotch? Do you go work out? Do you go party? I mean, do you just not even try to think about it? I mean, but what I'm suggesting is that ultimately those things can equate to a profound loneliness, and it's pretty tough.
Do you think that having this film has kind of let you escape that, being that this could be like your outlet to reach out to people and that people can identify you and see
that's actually a good point.
Do?
I do think that in many ways the artistic nature of this thing has been very helpful as far as digesting these incredibly difficult moments. I also think there's it'd be interesting to watch this thing in 20 years, because it's now this kind of like time capsule of my friends and I, like at this incredibly profound place in our life where we're just becoming responsible physicians. But I mean, I don't know. I think I still don't think that I have a great answer for that yet. Like I don't really know like what this does to you cumulatively, and every day you're seeing these incredibly difficult things. And this goes for any ER. I mean, I think any ER doc knows.
Yeah, I mean, I told you a little bit earlier, like I have an uncle's in the ER, and for years that was like his life. And then he had to be able to designate certain times, and he's now getting married to a traveling nurse who, was planed into his hospital. And he also he'll do, his big thing is he does treks. Like he does hikes where he serves as a physician. So they just hike to like base camp of Everest, and he's like the doctor who travels them. But he does. ER surgeons have to make very big choices on where they spend all of their time. But it does work out. I think that there's a beauty to it, and you can't find it. Do you think you'll stay in the path of ER medicine?
Definitely. Oh yeah, and I think happily it would be conducive to continuing to direct other projects, which is awesome.
What are you thinking? Any plans?
Well, the film itself has been optioned for narrative series, so we're excited about that. I mean, I think that's got a long way to go, and it's like very early development, but right off the bat, that's some good news. I've been directing some commercials, actually, so that's been cool.
Commercials for what?
I shot an ad for Fujifilm that's about to come out in a few weeks, so I'm excited about that.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it medical oriented?
Yeah, so we positioned this ad to be sort of this very like visual and like industrial representation of medicine, where doctors and patients are in this factory, and Fujifilm, which they also make ultrasound products, which in some ways really connect doctors and patients, end up being one of the answers for this very regulated industrial system. And so we actually did this all through dance. We reached out to Erica Sobel, who is a rad choreographer here based in LA, and found a bunch of modern and ballet dancers in the area as well as New York, and brought them together for a pretty impressive piece.
You're becoming like the head of this niche. I'm going to be a doctor, and I'm going to be a filmmaker, and I'm going to continue and find ways to illustrate this story. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
I feel like you're just like, okay, I did a film, did commercials, now I can do a TV series. Let's check everything off. That's big dreams, and I think you're succeeding very well at them. So we have many things to look forward to. Also, this is coming to theaters, guys. Code Black, if you haven't seen it, look it up. It's gonna. I know you're playing mostly smaller theaters, but I recommend it to everyone because it affects everyone. This is a movie for. It's easy. Anyone who ever has to go to the doctor. So, you. And it's filmed very well artistically, has a good message. The way you divided it up, it illustrates a lot of the problems in our medical system, and I think is very informative to the general public. At least I'm not someone who really knows a lot about the healthcare system, and I feel more informed and more interested.
And we give away a free Vicodin party pack to anybody who comes to the first few nights of the theater. That's what I heard. That's not us. That's our marketing team. I don't know if that's true.
I feel like you're lying.
No. That's obviously as a doctor I wouldn't do that. But we have, that's the studio. Yeah, it's all about the studio. Yeah,
well, there's
crazy
a
marketing
fun fact
techniques.
for you guys. Are you excited about that?
What?
The Vicodin Pact?
No, that's not for real. Yeah.
Okay, I'm really gullible. You can't do these things to me. I was literally like,
It's not for real.
I was like, what are you talking about?
no.
It's like, I feel like I would have heard about this.
I don't think the DEA or the California Medical Board would be okay with that. Yeah,
It's probably a good
it's a
thing.
really bad idea. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming in, Ryan. I look forward to seeing you again on one of your next projects.
I'll be right here.
Are you come in?
I'll be back,
And we'll talk about Maria's book again?
and we'll do some laundry back there. It'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Next time, we're actually going to see this in the laundry. Wonderful. Thank
All right,
you.
Thank you.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the rest of the Anatomy of a Movie staff, we would like to thank you for listening and subscribing to the show. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email or tweet us. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been Anatomy of a Movie.
Thanks for watching Anatomy of a Movie on YouTube. For more on your favorite movies, subscribe to our channel here and be sure to let us know what you think in our comment section below here. Bye.